Hello and welcome to another episode of Talking Politics on the Hindu's YouTube channel. This is a show where we look at some of the big stories that are hitting the headlines in domestic politics. I'm Nistula Hebbar, political editor of The Hindu and your guide through this show. Now this week we will be looking at the strength or scatter of the India bloc of opposition parties and their grouping and the questions arising over its leadership after the Congress did badly in the Maharashtra and Haryana Assembly polls. The clamour by regional outfits, which are the Congress's partners in the India bloc, raising the point that perhaps they, rather than the Congress, should lead the grouping. We're currently undergoing a fiery parliament session, winter session of parliament. It has seen various adjournments in its working day as the government and the opposition are going head-to-head on issues like the indictment of the Adani Group by the Department of Justice in the United States, accusations by the BJP of alleged links between the Congress party and billionaire George Soros, who had quite memorably once declared that he aimed to see off the Modi government, the violent incidents in Sambhal, and demands that all these things be discussed in Parliament. Now, one would have thought that both sides have enough issues to consolidate towards their base and to confront each other over it. But the session has happened just after the results of the Maharashtra elections and the Haryana elections that came before that. Within the first week of Parliament, there were murmurs within the opposition grouping, which also coordinates in terms of floor strategy in Parliament, that the Congress was intent only on discussing the Adani issue, while the TMC wanted a discussion on the situation in Bangladesh, which had seen a regime change, and the Samajwadi Party wanted to discuss the firing and deaths in Sambhal in UP, where an Archaeological Survey of India team had landed to carry out a court-ordered survey of a mosque where some people believed had existed a temple before. There was a communal conflagration there and SP wanted to discuss it. Internal talk reflected that the other parties did not appreciate having to push that one Congress-backed issue. This included the NCP Sharad Pawar as well. It did not take long for this to be extrapolated via statements, especially by West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee and RJD Chief Lalu Yadav, that maybe the leadership of the India bloc by the Congress be reconsidered. In a media interview, Ms. Banerjee had said, and I quote, "I formed the India bloc and now it is up to those leading it to manage it. If they can't run the show, what can I do? Everyone needs to be taken along. If given the opportunity, I would ensure its smooth functioning. I don't want to go outside West Bengal, but I can run it from here." She got support from RJD Chief Lalu Prasad Yadav soon after, and even the Shiv Sena UBT and the NCP Sharad Pawar made assenting noises. Now, why are these things being raised? Of course, the electoral performance that happened in Maharashtra and Haryana and the Congress's bad strike rate in terms of taking on the BJP in direct fights vis-a-vis regional outfits has fed into this notion that the party is not pulling its weight in terms of the space it demands in the opposition grouping. Prime Minister Narendra Modi had described the Congress as a parjivi or parasite, a parasitic creature, an entity that fed off its more dominant partner's support base in states where it was in an alliance with one of the constituents of the India bloc, but not strong enough to fight when on its own. The India bloc's partners' statements seem to show that they too are reflecting some of that thinking. As per parliamentary numbers in the Lok Sabha, the regional grouping, all the regional parties together have 135 seats and the Congress has 99 seats. So it comes to around 220 seats in the Lok Sabha. But when it comes to a consolidated opposition taking on a dominant ruling party, it has to be more than a sum of its part. Arithmetic is important, and so is chemistry and physics. Now, why do I say that? Why do I seem to be making a case that no, you need to kind of not just go by the numbers or strike rate. There are other things to be taken into consideration. I'm not saying that Congress should retain the leadership of the grouping, but that the nature of the leadership that is required of a diverse grouping like the India bloc needs to be a little novel. Now, let's first go through why I said that while arithmetic is important, so is chemistry and physics. So let's first examine why I said chemistry. Now, that's because any grouping that comes together of diverse parties needs to have a common set of values that they adhere to. This can be a problem as well as a blessing. In the case of the Congress, the constituent parties of the India bloc, while adhering to some of the professed ideological imperatives of the Congress, are also those that are eating into the support base of the Congress itself. The prime example being the TMC in Bengal that actually grew out of the Congress's support base there, Arvind Kejriwal in Delhi, etc., etc. And, you just saw it in the Gujarat Assembly elections in 2022, what happened to the Congress as soon as the R entered the fray. In fact, Mr. Kejriwal, not finding an adjustment with the Congress in Haryana during the assembly poll, has declared that his party would go it alone in Delhi. So you want to stay together, but you're also afraid that if you let somebody in, one of your partners, into your space, they will eat up that space and make you redundant. Now, the Congress did not want to usher the Aam Aadmi Party as an alternative for Haryana voters within its own support base, and Mr. Kejriwal seems to have taken his stand keeping the same principle in mind, because the BJP and its grouping hewing around the larger idea of Hindutva is basically not a Congress voter. So whoever the Congress voter is, all the other parties who are not espousing Hindutva, they are basically targeting the same vote, which was the Congress's original vote base. Now, how does physics step into the situation here? So when you talk about chemistry, you have to have a common set of ideas, maybe a common minimum program to kind of tick things along in terms of ideation and ideology. When it comes to physics, one would use the concept of a fulcrum or a center around which things oscillate. In the party, in the organization, when the Congress occupied the position now enjoyed by the BJP, which is where it was the dominant party, where everybody else was actually trying to defeat the Congress, it was the dominant ruling party. There were different fulcrums or parties and individuals that played the role of this, and around which the united opposition revolved. Because one always has to go back into history to see that, okay, this situation, when it occurred in the past, what happened? So you want to look for a fulcrum, or you want to see how important a fulcrum is in such situations, you need to go into the past. So in the 1960s, it was socialist leader Ram Manohar Lohia who commanded enough respect across the board to bring together as diverse forces as the socialists and the right-wing Jan Sangh, which is the precursor of the BJP, into the Samyukta Vidhayak Dal governments, which came up in various states. In several states in 1967, opposition parties together got more than the Congress. So they all banded together. They said, okay, anybody but the Congress, first let's get him out. Let's get these guys out. We'll form our government. And never mind that the experiment did not last too long. It gave a precedent. It gave a kind of a set of events that people could look back on and say, okay, there was a crisis of this kind, and this is how people managed to defeat the Congress at that point of time. Now, the lessons of that unity and its scatter were invoked in the 1970s as well by Jayaprakash Narayan in the Janata experiment and the anti-emergency movement. Again, this was short-lived but longer than the SPD government. So you are seeing that some of the lessons which were taken on board, although not all the kinks were ironed out. The National Front governments of the 1990s saw Telugu Desam's N. Chandrababu Naidu play that role of the fulcrum, the guy who got people together. The United Front government saw Harkishan Singh Surjit emerge as a real big player. He was a CPM leader. The UP also saw first Surjit and then Sitaram Yechuri and Pranab Mukherjee balance the exigencies of coalition politics for their parties and for the benefit of the entire grouping. The India bloc, therefore, needs someone who all parties trust to do the bigger thing work for acquiring power without individual careers getting in the way, somebody who could get everybody to sit in one room, hammer out a common minimum program, so to speak. So when you go into an assembly election or something like that in a coalition, people know, okay, if we vote these guys into power, they have these set of things that they have promised that they will do. There's some kind of an ideological and organizational coherence within the coalition. The recent assembly polls in Haryana and Maharashtra have not just demonstrated that there is nobody occupying the central position in the India bloc, but also that without consolidation, the opposition parties may go back to the 2019 situation, because there was a lot of elation after the 2024 Lok Sabha elections, which the opposition parties fought with a decent amount of coordination. They managed to restrict the BJP to 240 seats, about 32 seats short of a simple majority. But the subsequent events in Haryana, Maharashtra saw that the BJP had taken the lessons that it needed to from that election, and that the opposition grouping was very content to rest on its laurels and not work harder in terms of streamlining coordination, ticket distribution, candidate selection, etc., that they need to do together to make this kind of a grouping successful in the electoral format. The India bloc leaders, if they want the grouping to work in challenging the BJP, must have someone who maintains the peace and balances the political exigencies of all the players. Till that search yields a result, each adverse electoral result of failure to coordinate a parliamentary floor plan will see the chipping away of the India bloc. I hope this has given you an insight as to where the opposition now stands in its grouping. Do subscribe to the channel if you have liked the content and want more of this stuff. For this week, this is all I have for you. Thank you so much for watching. I shall see you next week.